in San Antonio. I kind of knew there was a guy at the line, I'm not sure his name, that he did say he was, I don't know if he said he's going to run a 214 or had run a 214, something like that. So I was going in, I figured it was going to be more of a training effort. At the line, I did get a little bit of, that guy said that, and I'm like, oh, maybe I am going to have to run this fast.
Together through their stride.
Welcome back to Through Their Stride, a Texas-born podcast sharing the stories of runners from here at home and far beyond. I'm your host, Sam Sutton, and today I am joined by Colin Mickow, the recent winner of the new San Antonio Marathon. Colin is a two-time Olympic trials athlete. He is a new, he's now working with a 910, which is a new running shoe brand from Indonesia, and he is just an overall great guy. He tells us his story about coming back to running after being a collegiate track runner at the University of Illinois in 2012, then making his way back to the into the half marathon for the first time later on, and then just kind of continuing to climb. He climbed really fast in the half distances and the full distances, and now, I mean, he's running at an elite level, running 2:11 and some change as his PR. I mean, incredible athlete, talks a lot about his high mileage, kind of has a little bit of an unorthodox style of training. He does 24-mile long runs and 20-mile long runs, both in the weekends during his plan. He gets about 140, 150 miles a week at peak. And just super interesting to hear how one person's training is so different from somebody else's. So I'm very excited to share his story with you guys. And thank you so much for listening. If you like this episode, please give it a review, share it with your friends, and be sure to follow this on Spotify or Apple Podcast or Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Stride, I'm your host, Sam Sutton, and I'm joined by Colin Mickow, who is the recent winner of the San Antonio Marathon. So Colin, welcome on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Sam.
Yeah. And so you've been kind of running marathons for a while professionally. You were at the Olympic trials back in 2023. Is that correct?
Yeah, so 2020 was my first Olympic trials, and then also 2024. Right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was 2024. It was, I think, January, so just turned 2020.
Yeah. Awesome. So you've been at this a while, but you said the San Antonio Marathon course was pretty hilly. So explain that race. How'd that go for you? And what made you want to choose that race?
So I'll start with why I chose it. So a brand called 910 out of Indonesia. There was a big trade show called the Running Event in San Antonio before the marathon, which I believe I heard it's like the biggest running brand trade show in possibly the world, if not at least the nation. So 910 was going to be there. They're an Indonesian shoe brand that is coming to the U.S. market, and they wanted an athlete there for the trade show. They did a live interview there, and then they also wanted the athlete to run the San Antonio Marathon. So that is the reason that I was out there. And then to the course, so I ran Chicago in October, so I wasn't I didn't completely train for this. It was more going to be kind of a training effort and a chance to try out those 910 shoes. They had some new race shoes that I think just hit the market for sale recently. So I wasn't going to go all out there, but the course, I didn't realize how hilly it was. We maybe hit our first mile around 8 or 9, which was fine. But then it's after about mile 10, it seemed like it was just constant hills until after like mile 20. It was a lot of hills. It was fun. It was a good course. The bike guy, the bike pacer with me kind of kept me company. So it was fun to try with him. And he would kind of warn me, oh, you got a couple more hills coming up around this curve, whatever. He was kind of helping me out with that because he knew the course pretty well. But yeah, even at the training effort, it took a bit of a toll on me. I'm still pretty sore from it, but it was fun. It's a good experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know they've been doing the San Antonio Marathon with rock and roll for a few years now, and now this one they did it kind of purely, individual from them, and they changed the course a little bit. So I know you got to go through a lot of historic San Antonio scenes like the Alamo and several others. So what was that like to see kind of a history of the city?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it was a beautiful course. There was it was a scenic route. I think maybe Maybe that's why there are so many hills. They didn't care about the hills. They wanted it to be scenic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're running like that, you can't really take everything in, but definitely we were in some cooler areas. The Alamo was towards the end. We finished near the Alamo, so that was a really cool experience to run by the Alamo, and I got some good pictures in front of that from people. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, San Antonio's a cool city. It was my first time going out there, and I was there from Wednesday to Monday, so I experienced more than just the race. I went on the Riverwalk pretty much every day. I was staying pretty much on the Riverwalk, so it was a fun time.
Yeah, yeah. San Antonio is one of my favorite cities. I live in Fredericksburg, Texas, so we're about an hour away from San Antonio.
Okay.
And my wife and I go there all the time. Her dad lives up there, and I raced just a 5K a couple weeks ago in San Antonio, and they're like, "Oh, it's a fast and flat course, easy, quick run." And I was like, "Okay, great. I could possibly PR there." And it's like, this is one of the hilliest 5Ks I think I've ever ridden. I was like, what are you talking? There's nothing fast and flat in San Antonio.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I read some articles about the hills on this one, and like I didn't really pay that much attention to what they had marketed this race as, but I saw like people were complaining that they said like some rolling hills or something like that. It was definitely more than rolling hills, I would say. I think that was my 11th marathon. And I've done some hard ones, like the trials you referenced. My first trials in 2020 was in Atlanta. That was hilly. Boston's hilly. I think this, if I was going all out on this, I think this might have been the hardest course I've run. It was extremely hilly. I don't know what our Elliott name was, but it had to be a lot. At least for me. And yeah, I'm Chicago.
Yeah, I am.
So I'm used to flat.
Yeah, I am curious about what the difference was like between a Boston and this one, because I've been hearing from a lot of people like complaints even that it was so hilly. And my whole thing is like, why complain about a marathon? Like, you signed up for something hard. Don't be so complaining about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is what we signed up for. It's a challenge, right?
Yeah, for sure. But so also going back to the 910 shoes, I did see some things on your Instagram about that. So what were those shoes like? That's a brand I haven't yet heard of. So how did those shoes feel, and what made you want to kind of join with them?
Yeah. So you probably haven't heard them because I think they pretty much are just in Indonesia. They're just now kind of making it to the US market. So hopefully they're, bigger around here soon. They were good. They were really light, responsive. They felt fast. They felt quick.
Awesome. And so going back to you and your running story. So I listened to a podcast before you came on, hearing that you had run collegiately for the University of Illinois. Is that correct? And then you kind of took some time off and then kind of found the marathon. So can you kind of talk a little bit about that process, and how that transition was, and what made you want to start trying the marathon?
Yeah. So I ran at U of I. I was done in 2012. And after that, I didn't have a contract or anything. I just went and joined the real world, got a normal job in finance. And I got more, I still worked out. I got more into lifting than running, I would say. I still ran most every day a little bit, but I wasn't training or anything. And I got more into lifting. Probably got too big to be a distance runner at that point for a while. But then, after 5 years, 6 years or so, I started to want to go back to running more. Maybe got sick of lifting at that point. And so I started running, it started with maybe like an hour a day or something. And then I was doing long runs, maybe 90 minutes, which is, maybe a lot for some people. It's like nothing to me now to do 90 minutes, but that's about what I was doing. And there was a half marathon that started under a mile from my house in the Chicago suburbs here. And I remember the year before kind of seeing the guy that won get interviewed and stuff. And I remember thinking I could beat that guy. But when I was coming around the next year, I was like, I'm running enough that I could probably run pretty decent there. So I signed up for that. That was fall of 2018. So it had been 6 years off since I had been racing. I did pretty well there. I won, I had no idea what I was doing. I started at like 6:30 pace or something like that, but I ended up running a 67. So I cut down a lot by the end. I remember in that race kind of thinking like people talk about hitting a wall or something. Am I going to hit a wall? I don't know. I didn't realize that that's like only in the full, not really in the half.
Yeah.
No, little I knew about it. Like over those 6 years, I wasn't in the running world like at all. I didn't really know people that were racing or anything. So I was really clueless at that point. But when I ran the 67, I think back then, like 64 maybe got you to the trials. And I had started so slow and it was like 22 degrees or something. And so I was well, back then I used to think super shoes were a scam. So I was also in like racing flats. So I was like, if I actually like tried this, maybe I could hit that time.
Yeah.
So I didn't race again until the next spring, but then I think I ran a 64 that spring. Then I debuted that next fall in the marathon at Chicago, ran a 2:14. Then I ran a half as a tune-up for the trials. I ran a 61. So that was kind of my breakthrough out of Houston when I ran a 61, which Houston.
Oh yeah, Houston.
Yeah, I think that's the best half in the country. I've run a couple of 61s. The 2 times I've done, I've run 61. But I would say that was kind of my breakthrough. That got me on the 2020 World half team that year, which we didn't end up doing because of COVID. The U.S., it got postponed once, and then the U.S. ended up not going. But that was kind of my first world team, I guess you could say. Because then after COVID, so I ran some races, PR'd at the Marathon Project. Then I got 6th in Chicago in 2021. That got me on the World Marathon team for 2022, which we actually did get to do. That one didn't go so well, though. I fell and tore my meniscus in that race. Ended up having a surgery. But I did finish. I felt like 10K. It's a tough finish. But still ran at 2:16, so it wasn't terrible.
All right.
I don't know. And I just
Yeah.
like I said, this was I think my 11th, so I've run quite a few now. So
Yeah.
29.
And you said when you started running, well, when you ran in college and growing up, you didn't like running. Is that correct? And what I mean, obviously, like it seems like 11 now.
Yeah, I didn't. That was kind of I did it because I was good back then, and I just kind of felt like I should do it since I'm good. But I always thought like people that said they like running are crazy. I was just kind of like, yeah, you got to do it to be good. We have to run more, but I never really liked it. So yeah, that probably led into me taking the 6 years off, and then I don't know, the real world or something just made me like, you know what, running's better than the real world. So I got back. Oh, I love it. I like going for runs, so I run so much.
Yeah, that's funny. And you said in the real world, you're in finance. Are you still in finance? And what do you do as a full-time job?
Yeah, I'm corporate finance. I'm a financial analyst for an organic food distributor out here in the Chicago suburbs.
For you, for running and working your full-time job, you're running, it sounds like, at the professional level. I mean, you're at Olympic trials, you're on championship teams. How do you juggle kind of a full-time job and training, and what's that process like?
It's a lot of early mornings. Sleep is probably what suffers, which I know is important for recovery, but I probably don't get enough, because I wake up pretty early to run, like 5 a.m. or so. And so I'll do majority of I double 5 days a week. So work day, I pretty much always double. So I'll do like the bulk of my running in the morning. And then if it's possible, I'll squeeze it in at lunch, or after work, I'll do 4 or 6, usually 6. When I'm in a training block, my easy days are usually 12 and then 6. And then Wednesdays I'll do workouts, which that usually takes a little longer. So I usually have to wake up a little earlier Wednesday mornings, but I'll do those in the mornings typically. And then long runs on the weekends, I like to, because I feel like I don't have enough time during the week, I will typically do 2 long runs on the weekday or on the weekends. I'll do 24 to 26, I would say, typically in a training block on Saturday, and then I'll go 20 plus on Sunday. The 24, 26 is usually harder. I'll get down to like marathon or sub-marathon pace on those. And then the 20, I try to stay moderate. It kind of depends on who I'm with. Sometimes they push me to get down to the lower 5s, but I try to stay around 5:30 or something in my classes on the Sundays, because it's not easy day, but it's more moderate day. I don't want to push it too much, usually. Sometimes I will.
Yeah, Man, you run 20 and 24 miles on the weekends. That's incredible. That's a lot of running for a block.
Yeah,
Yep.
couple long runs. I think it helps a lot, especially if you can't get as many miles in the week. I try to hit like 130, 140, usually 140, I would say, on a training block around there.
Wow. That's a lot of miles. How do you so you said sleep kind of takes a toll obviously as a full-time job and probably as a father, and husband. I see some pictures of your family and stuff back in the background. So what do you do for recovery to recover from weeks like that? What are a few tips that you got for that?
I do a lot for recovery. So I have a chiropractor that sponsors me, and I go to him at least twice a week. I mean, he would probably let me go every day if I really thought I needed it, but we do like twice a week. He usually does dry needling. That's like kind of his main thing with me, because I'll roll out on my own and do all that stuff. But yeah, I'm pretty good about rolling out, stretching, all that. And then yeah, I go to the PT. I'll do massages as needed. But yeah, recovery's big.
Yeah, that's one of those things that like me as like a normal runner, like I'm so bad at. I never do any of the foam rolling or like the stretching throughout the weeks. Like, and I'm peaking out at like 50 miles from my training, but like I would assume like for 140 miles, like if you miss stuff like that, you're done for. Have you ever gone through training where you're like, recovery, it's fine, and then paid for it at the end?
Yeah, so when I first got back into running, I didn't do anything. I it used to be easier though. I don't know if all the miles are taking a toll. Like I always have something that like hurts, usually small things that I'm running through. Back when I was, more of a fresh marathoner, I could just kind of do whatever I wanted. And it seemed like it built up. Eventually I started having injuries, but the first couple of years, it was like I was unstoppable. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things like my wife, I'll be sitting at home and be like, man, my lower back really hurts, or like my knee really hurts, and she's like, you should foam roll, and I'm like, yeah, and like I was like, maybe a little minute, and then I don't get it out.
Yeah, I mean, it does hurt to like really get in there when you're rolling, but yeah,
Yeah.
you just
And then you talked about earlier about like hitting the wall, and you said you expected it in your first half, and then you're like, oh, I guess that usually just comes in the full. Have you hit a wall before? So, in your 11 marathons, and what happened when you first hit it? What kind of you felt led to it?
I guess so. I don't know like specifically what hitting the wall is, but I've had marathons that I like barely finished, where it feels like you're like walking in, especially Boston. Just this last Boston, I did 2025. I did 2024 Boston, April. And yeah, the last couple miles, I just, it's like you kind of like tunnel out or something.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what caused it. I don't know if I was under fueled or just the hills. Like I said, I'm from Chicago, so like everything I run is flat. So like Boston's tough for me. I've done it twice. It's been tough both times. You start so fast with the downhill, and then you go uphill, and that's what, like around in the 20s or something, low 20s. And usually I'm like, okay, I'm not too bad up these hills. But then like the next mile is when it really hits you. At least for me, the last two times I did it. Who knows? Maybe I'll do it again and it won't happen. I don't know.
Yeah, my mom was a big runner in her heyday, and she did Boston twice. And the first time she did it, she didn't really know anything about it. She just knew that that's like, it showed that you were a pretty good runner if you qualified. So she qualified, and then she ran it. She didn't know anything about it, and she ran down those downhills, and she was like, "Is this the course? Like, is this what it's gonna be like? This is gonna be amazing." And then she, ate it on the last, like on the hills, and barely finished. And there's actually a story that she was taken off of the course in like around mile 18 or so, and she, underfueled, tired from going out too fast, and they had an IV in her arm, and she was sitting in the medical tent. And my dad was with her, and the doctor had to leave to go take care of some other people. And they're like, "Okay, I'll be right back." And it was like, just keep an eye on her. And he was like, okay. And she tore the IV out of her arm and got back on the course and started running the rest of it. And she had to be carried back to the bus, but she was like, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna be smart next time. I'm not gonna go out too fast.
Yeah.
And then in 2004 she ran it again. She went out too fast.
Yeah, it's like it's impossible, I think, with how much downhills at the beginning. But I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
it's
yeah.
you know, it's like it's
You have to.
all the adrenaline.
I had to do. So I guess the world's maybe I hit a wall with my knee was so messed up, and my hamstring cramped up. I think because I had such terrible form. And after that one, like I remember I like went to the bathroom and then I couldn't get out of the port, but I like needed help, and then I like collapsed and like they came around. They're like, oh, they want to interview you. So they threw me in a wheelchair and I went and tried to do interviews. And then at a certain point, my whole body started cramping during it. They had to like pick me up out of the wheelchair and rush me to the med tent. And for like at least an hour, I just kept having like, I would go in and out of full body cramping. And they didn't want to give me an IV. I think there's like, are you not supposed to have, is it like against like drug testing or something? You're not supposed to do an IV or something. I don't know. They were like reluctant. They gave me like chicken broth at first. And I just like had to be in pain for like an hour. And eventually they were like, all right, we'll give you an IV.
Dang, they were trying to make you tough it out.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about exactly, but the IV helped.
Yeah.
Wish they just gave it to me right away.
Yeah. Awesome. And you said you used to not like running, and obviously now you're in the professional world. Do you like running now? And it's not, you also said that you kind of run with people sometimes for your long runs. And so do you feel like just the community of running in general has kind of fed that in you? And talk about, your relationship with running today.
Yeah, the community definitely helps. I know a lot of good guys around the Chicago area. I used to be in a club. Now I kind of bounce around in every club. It's kind of, I'll go to different practices with different clubs. Everybody kind of knows me in the Chicago area. So it's kind of like, to me, going to these long runs with like these guys, it's kind of like, that's what I do to hang out with my friends, So it's fun. I look forward to doing the long runs. The solo runs, especially the Wednesday morning workouts, those can be a little tough to get yourself out there, but I know that once you do it, it's worth it, So maybe I'm just smarter about it. Back when I was younger, I didn't like realize the benefits. I was more looking at, I have to do this workout. This sucks. And now I'm like, oh, I know I'll be happy once I'm done. And I can actually like realize that before I actually do the workout a little better. Just experience.
Mm-hmm. I gotta ask too. I mean, I'm a big I'm a big runner nerd, I would say, and I'm a big fan of Eric Floberg's. Have you met him being in the Chicago area?
Yeah, I've met him. There's a half that a lot of people do as like a tune-up before Chicago Marathon out here in the suburbs. It's called Hidden Gem. I think that's the only time I've actually met him in person, but I've seen him there the last couple of years. So yeah, I don't know him, but we're mild acquaintances, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. I needed to ask about that because I saw you were from Illinois, and I was like, oh, I wonder if he knows Floberg, because like obviously all the runners know him nowadays, but
Yeah.
you actually got to meet him. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, his videos are cool too. I think he's more like northern suburbs. I'm more western. We're not too far from each other, but yeah, who knows? Maybe one day we'll run into each other more. Like out.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I run around here usually. I think I have seen him out on a trail here before. That's a pretty popular trail. So yeah, we cross paths a little bit.
Yeah. And then going into, I wanted to talk a little bit about the training for San Antonio. I know you said you had done Chicago, so this was just kind of like a race that you did with 910 and maybe training for something else. And so coming in on short notice, what was that training like? And was there a time in the race where you thought, oh, maybe I could win this thing?
The training was, I probably figured out that I was doing San Antonio a month after Chicago, so November. So that probably gave me about a month. I don't know, a little over a month. So I didn't have that long. I didn't specifically train for this. I wouldn't say I threw some workouts in because I was actually signed up for the marathon project, which is happening in a couple weeks. So it was kind of like, I'm going to see how these workouts feel. Pretty, like, my turnaround was pretty quick after Chicago for doing some workouts just to kind of see if I could bounce back for marathon project. Cause I really did want to do that race because I know it's fast. It's like it's as flat as a course can be. And back when I did it in 2020, there was no wind. So that's why I wanted to do it. I know it'll be fast, but, the workouts weren't, I felt okay, but, I knew I wasn't going to be like how I was before Chicago in that kind of shape. So I decided to pivot and do this thing when this opportunity came up, and thought I'll do a spring instead, have a little more time. I know it's like all the rage now to like do these back-to-back marathons. So that's kind of what I was trying to do. I don't think that's for me. I don't know how these guys are doing that. I need a little more, take a longer block still. I kind of, I hadn't really tried to do that, but I learned like, yeah, I need the recovery after the actual race, and then do a block, get back into it. And then San Antonio, I kind of knew there was a guy at the line. I'm not sure his name, that he did say I don't know if he said he's going to run a 2:14 or had run a 2:14, something like that. So I was going in, I figured it was going to be more of a training effort. At the line, I did get a little bit of that guy said that, and I'm like, oh, maybe I am going to have to run this fast. But we started with the half guys, and I was only with half guys. I never saw anybody in the marathon from the gun. And at the beginning, I was kind of turning around like, where is everybody? But, after a few miles, I realized it was probably going to be a solo effort, which I kind of went in thinking it probably would be anyways.
Yeah. So you kind of won, like you were kind of on your own at the end there. With no competition, it sounds like.
Yeah, I was on my own so I was with a group of half guys, maybe through 5. And then there was like one half guy with me through like 9 or 10. I think we split at 10. He maybe started to fall back at around 8 or 9, but I was with half guys for a while, and then the split. And then I knew I'd be solo, and there was the bike guy. So it like switched. The bike guy that had been with me kept going with the half, and then I got a new bike guy, and he started like a ways in front of me, and I called back to him like, hey, I'm going to need somebody to keep me company. And he was awesome. I think his name was Michael. I could be wrong. I think he said his name was Michael, but he kept me company the whole time. He was chatting the whole time. I had a lot of stuff to tell me. Like, it kept me in. Awesome. Yeah, we had a good time.
When you're so fast that the one person you hang with is the bike guy, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to talk a little bit too about, so it sounds like like you said, you have high mileage training, and you do a lot of 20 plus long runs on the weekends. So that's a pretty unorthodox way of training. So how did you kind of fall into that? Are you self-coached, or are you coached by somebody?
I am coached by somebody, but that was kind of my own invention. So the first couple of years I got back into running, I was self-coached. I kind of did no workouts. I just did harder long runs, which really weren't even as hard as I do now. Like I don't know how I ran fast when I first got back into it, because like I was running a lot, but that was it. I was maybe getting under 6 at the end of long runs for the last like 5 miles or something. So I don't know how I held like a 4:42 pace and a half when I hadn't even run sub 5s, but somehow I did. But the long run thing came like kind of what I said, like where I was just like, I just want to get more miles in. So I was just doing double long runs on the weekends. And then I joined a club, and so I got a coach. That was the first time I had a coach. I started in 2020. So I guess maybe I was only self-coached like a year. But he didn't exactly tell me to keep doing it, but I just kept doing it. And I think because I had success coming in, he was kind of like, maybe this is his thing. And my current coach actually ran with me on that club team back then. So his name's Alan Peterson. He used to coach at Loyola in Chicago. Now he coaches at Grand Valley State in Michigan. So he moved away. So he's a remote coach. But when I first asked him to start coaching me, I had like a bit of an injury or something like that. And he was like looking through my Strava to kind of try to figure out a plan. This was before Chicago, not this year, but the year before is when I asked him to coach me. and I hadn't been doing the double long runs, and he was kind of like, "Why aren't you doing double long runs? You did that when you were good. What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I'm trying to make sure I feel healthy, but yeah, I'll get back to it." So I don't know. In a way, he just tell me to keep doing it. There was a point where I was even doing like, and this was with the club coach. I was doing like 26, 20 plus, and then 18 in the morning after, all of them finishing like low 5 to sub 5. The 18 I did cut out. That seemed a little crazy. I did that before I got 6 at Chicago. That was kind of I did that like at least 4 weeks in that training block, but that was a bit much. Like that was almost getting close to 3 long runs in a row. And then I doubled back 2 to 6 on that Monday. So I was getting a lot of miles in 3 days back then. But as I don't think that was sustainable. That's kind of why that's cut out.
Yeah. And then, but I mean, you're still doing pretty high mileage stuff. And, it's so funny because, like, what works for some runners, like, just works so differently for others. I'll hear some runners who, like, I heard this one lady a few weeks ago, she only does like 40 something miles a week, 40 to 50 miles a week, but she does a lot of stuff on like the Stairmaster, and she's like the queen of the Stairmaster, and like she doesn't do any easy runs. She just does like tempo and speed workouts. And I was listening to this, I'm like, yeah, if I tried to do that, I'd probably like pull something. But and then you do super high mileage, and it's just like I'm always fascinated with what works for so many people.
Yeah. I guess everybody's different. I think I got to do the high mileage to make up for lacking talent, is what I would say. High mileage makes up for it. It helps your talent levels.
Yeah. And then you said you were a big weightlifter after college. Do you still do a lot of weight training, or what do you do to cross train these days?
Well, I really only cross train when I have to, basically. So if I'm hurt or like after a marathon, and I'll bike. Yeah, there was a point where I did do the aqua jogging because what was that? I had some injury where I thought the bike maybe was also not a good idea. But mostly I just bike. I mean, I don't like aqua jogging. So my cross training is biking, but I only do that when I have to. And then like lifting, I don't really lift that much anymore. I guess actually more recently, maybe in it's probably been about a year, I did try to get back into more like strength training for my legs. Because back when I lifted, I did a lot of vanity lifts. So I'm not doing it. I benched, I curled, I did all that. I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I don't want the upper body to be big. But now I have like a leg extension, hamstring curl, calf raise, one of those tibialis, where you like it's just your feet kind of lift it. And I'll go through waves of where I'm doing that like every day or like every other day. And then, closer to like a race, I will probably start to cut back. But I am back to doing that a little more regularly. I started having like one of my knees just was hurting, and, we kind of compared my quads, and my left quad was bigger than my right. So that's kind of what got me into doing the leg extensions more, to just try to build that quad a little bit. It seemed like maybe that was a weakness. So yeah, I'll do a little bit of strength training. Probably could do more really, but
Hey, that's the thing with runners, though. It's kind of a trade-off. Like,
yeah,
if you're doing all the mileage that we're doing, you add in too much strength work, then you're just going to be, you're going to be fatigued every day. So
right. Time to get hard. It's like, I have a hard effort tomorrow. Well, I can't really lift hard before a hard effort. Strategically do that. Maybe do it after the hard effort or whatever. But
yeah. Yeah, something I like to do is I'm a big fan of CrossFit along with running, so I'll try to get in some CrossFit while training. But like, if I do it more than 2 days in a week, I'm like, I get to my long run day on the weekends, and I'm like doing like a 10-30 mile, and I'm like just suffering out there because your body just gets taxed out.
yeah, I know. Yeah, if I lift hard with my legs, especially the leg extension, it's like you feel like you're running in like molasses when you're out there the next day.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so looking at, I guess, the next 365 days for Colin, what does 2026 look like? How do you kind of prep your race calendar? And yeah, what's next for you?
So I plan on doing a bigger spring marathon. I'm not completely settled on which one yet, but I'll probably have that figured out pretty soon, probably within a week or two. Trying to nail it down this week, which I'm coming up to the end of, but hopefully I know soon. And then the whole 2026, I mean, I'm sure I'll try to do a fall. This spring, the 2 springs I'm kind of between are earlier for the spring. So I was thinking there's a chance I could squeeze something in before the fall too, if I want to. We'll see. But then I'm back to the quick turnaround. So I don't know. We'll see. I got to kind of plan it out each race at a time, but I'm ready to do like a real harder effort. So I'll do a big spring.
Awesome. And do you have any kind of candidates for spring for the marathon? Do you have a few that you're looking for, or are you allowed to talk about that? I know as like a professional, you might be,
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it really matters if I talk about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
These races are like, I'm not like a big name for them to get. So, it's looking like a good chance I do a race in Japan. Those are 2 on between. So there's Osaka in the end of February, and then there's Tokyo, which is the first weekend of March. So right now it seems like one of those 2. I don't know if I should say everything. I'm like, I am on a couple of the lists that are options. I don't know if I'll do them instead. I don't know. Most likely, I'm thinking it's going to be one of the Japan races. Well, that's why I'm saying. That's why I said those are kind of early spring. So I could have time to do, like a grandma's or something if I did an early spring. But I'm not saying I'm going to do that. We'll see. Who knows?
Yeah, that's cool. I've always wanted to visit Japan. My dad goes there every year for work, but I'm super jealous if you do get to go because I hear it's a great place to get to visit.
Yeah, if I end up doing those or one of those, yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be cool because I'll do the race, but then I'm sure I'll stay, after and explore.
That's cool. And so is your kind of plan and thought Olympics in 2028? Are you going back to the trials? And what's your how do you plan to prepare for that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, so that'll be like January or February 2028, I assume. So that year I'll probably just do a fall, and then that'll be the focus after that. So I don't know what fall I'll do. That's a ways away, but whatever I do in the fall, then I'll just start training for the trials. That'll be the big goal, to do well there, make the team, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Is Olympics kind of like your main top goal, your white whale, or I mean, obviously, like for American runners, the Olympic trials, even just getting there is such a huge huge thing on your resume. So like even if you just make it there, that's awesome. But do you have kind of big aspirations for the Olympics?
I mean, it would be nice. I think I'm a long shot, I'll say. I don't think it's like, but more realistic than a lot of people in the race, I guess. Yeah, I mean, so 2020, it was my second marathon when I did the trials, and I led the pack for like 18 miles or whatever when the group of 5 broke off. So like even back then when it was only my second marathon, I put myself in it to try to, because they're like 5 guys broke off. And even then I tried to chase them down. I ended up like the 6 to like 22. And I went really fast in mile like 19 to 20 to try to catch them. And it was in my second marathon. So I didn't know what I was doing. And I went way too hard to try to catch that group because I thought that's the Olympics. That's my chance. And I completely blew up at like 22 and I crawled in. I went from like 6th place to 15th is where I finished. But yeah, I mean, I'm a long shot for sure, but if I'm there, I'll be there. I'll put myself in it as long as I'm in good shape. 2024, I wasn't in that great shape, so I wouldn't say I really put myself in it, but I sprained my ankle like a mile and a half in 2024. A bunch of guys cut right in front of me and I stepped back. Like my ankle was huge and it was a mile and a half in and I finished. It like hurt every step or like every other step every time I went down, but Still finished 20th, but that was a rough one. Hopefully it doesn't
Yeah,
happen in
that's
28. That won't.
I was like, it sounds like something like that's happened to you twice now, where you got, kind of tripped up and several years ago when you hurt your meniscus, and then here. So
That,
people kind of,
oh man, happens. I've pulled a muscle in 2 of them out of 11. Stuff happens to everybody. You never know what's going on there. I just try to always like run through whatever happens. Usually, so like San Antonio was different. That was actually the first marathon I've done where it wasn't like my A race for the time. So usually it's like, this is my A race. I trained months for this. So even if something like that happens, I'm gonna try to finish.
Mhm. Yeah, awesome. Well, it would be so cool to see you, go to the Olympics. I'll definitely, you got a new fan in me, so I'll be following you from here on out.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask too, for, you run a lot of miles. You're out there a lot. You're running the roads, and putting in a lot of distance. Mentally, what does that give you to kind of, to be out there and to be moving? What does running give you mentally?
What does it give me mentally? Uh, I don't know. It allows me to eat whatever I want. I like that about it.
For sure.
But it's, I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, because for me, I think like I love a marathon build just because I feel like I get to I'm out there a lot. I get to process a lot of emotions, a lot of things in my day when I'm out running. Is it kind of the same way for you? Do you kind of use it as kind of like a mental, you know, reset from the day?
Yeah, maybe if there's something on my mind. I think mostly it just like gives you like accomplishment, except especially like workout days. If you have a good workout, the rest of the day you're like, that was awesome.
Yeah, I
Like,
feel like I can't.
yeah, you go into work and you're like nobody knows that I just ran 12 miles at like 450 pace this morning before it was pretty awesome. And so like you have like this self-satisfaction.
hmm And I was gonna ask too, I mean, like being at your level and then also having a full-time job, when you go into like your day job, is it kind of cool to feel like, I'm the I'm the king of all, like the runner out of all of you guys. Like, is it kind of an envious thing that people talk about?
People talk about it, some people at work seem to be, kind of fans of it. In fact, I would say most people, my work is really supportive of it. I think they think it's cool. So when I started at this company, my boss at the time, he was like a Ironman guy, and he kind of knew I ran at college, so he would kind of egg me on, like, you should get back in racing. So I kind of have to credit him a little bit because that was part of me getting back into it. And when I was self-coached or whatever, and I'm like, I didn't know anything about road running or whatever, he was kind of my go-to for a while, like about fueling or whatever. Like I would ask him about that stuff. So yeah, work, even helped me get into running a little bit. I do sometimes think I have to remind myself, like, I'm paid to be a financial analyst, and they don't need to care about my running. So like I try to not have it affect my work at all as best I can. Obviously, when I like go run a race or whatever, but I am on PTO, I have PTO or whatever, so that's fine. But I do sometimes remind myself, like, well, these people don't have to care about my running career or whatever. I'm here to be a financial analyst for them, not a runner. But they are really supportive, so it's cool. It's a good
Yeah,
company.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a cool story about your boss, like kind of getting you into it. So was he a pretty fast Ironman? Like
I'm not
not
sure. So he got into it. He was like a volleyball player or whatever when he was younger. He's a California guy.
Yeah.
So he got into running later in life, maybe in his 40s or something like that, and cycling, all of it later in life. So I don't know if he did go to the world's Ironman or whatever, and finish. I'm not sure his time or whatever. And I know that's like age groups and stuff, but yeah, he was into it. He's probably good. I don't know much about the triathlon, honestly. So like someone could tell me a time, I'd have no idea. like, like the best
Yeah.
triathlon guy in the world could tell me his time. You're like, okay, cool. I'm not sure or not. I have to look it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll see people do the triathlon distances and like I'm like, wait, you have to run a marathon and cycle like 100+ miles and swim? Like,
Right.
I'm like, that's crazy.
Easy. The Ironman stuff.
Yeah.
Like we think just a third of their race is really hard, but this, and people sometimes say like, oh, you're gonna try a triathlon, you should do it. This guy actually, my boss, he would tell me I should try it, and I'm like, I just can't do the swimming part. I suck at the swimming part, so I don't know how.
Yeah. I'm a floater, not a swimmer.
That's why I aqua jog. I'm like, I can't swim laps like other people. I gotta run even when I'm in water.
Yeah, it's funny. Like it was one of the first things that me and my wife did together. We went and swam, and we were like swimming, and I'm like kind of like, like just doing the frog thing, and she gets in, and she's like so graceful, and then like I'm like watching her, and I'm like, good God, like I was like, how you gotta teach me how to swim because obviously I don't know how to swim.
Breathing. I've like when I was doing the aqua jog, it's like, all these old people are just like swimming laps. And I'm like, I can't do that. I just can't do the breathing. I go down once, then I come back and I'm just like, I'm like getting water in when I'm trying to take a breath. I don't know. Maybe I just need to practice more.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on today. And before I let you go, I like to ask like a few rapid fire questions to my guests sometimes before I let them go. So do you mind if I ask you like three rapid fires?
Go ahead. Let's see.
All right.
Answer them.
So so first off, what are you binge watching right now?
Binge watching. I don't know if I'm really binge watching it, but I would say the show I'm watching, I started Stranger Things. I'm probably on like the last season or whatever just came out. Probably on like the third episode or something. But I started that a couple of weeks ago or a week ago or something. So I don't know if I would call it binge watching. And then I started Severance too on the plane. I don't have Apple TV though, but the plane back from San Antonio, I started Severance. I want to be able to binge watch it or whatever, keep watching it, but I have to get Apple TV, I think. But it's kind of cruel. I got hooked on the plane when they had Apple TV, and now I'm like, I can't watch it. But that was a good show. First couple episodes.
Yeah. Talking about Stranger Things, I love Stranger Things. I started watching it way back in like 2017.
Yeah.
I will say, if you can hold off, don't binge watch it because there's only like a few episodes now, and then they'll release the second set on Christmas and the last one New Year's. So you might want to give yourself some time because we binge watched it the first 2 days, and we were like, well, now I got nothing to watch.
Yeah.
But my next question is, so you live in Chicago, so obviously deep dish pizza is a huge thing. Where is the best deep dish pizza in Chicago?
The best deep dish, I guess I'm going to go with Lou Malnati's. That's my favorite deep dish. A lot of Chicago people are like, oh, deep dishes for tourists or whatever. I like deep dish pizza. The other style that people credit Chicago for, I think, tavern style. So my favorite tavern style, which I seem to be, unique in this. A lot of people don't agree with me when I bring it up, but I think Home Run Inn, which is, I don't know, it's maybe not as nationally known. You maybe haven't heard of it. They have frozen pizzas, I think, nationally. So maybe you've seen in the frozen pizza. I love that pizza though. The Home Run Inn tavern style. That's maybe my favorite pizza.
Yeah. I have seen those in the frozen section. I think I actually may have gotten one time. It's not bad. I like it.
It's the crust is, I always say it's like a pie crust. So maybe that's why people don't think it's their favorite. Like it's maybe not as traditional, but it's like a flaky kind of buttery pie crust.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I love that. Yeah. And my last question is, and before I ask this one, I have to preface it. So what all Texas races have you done? You said you done Houston and then obviously San Antonio. Have you done any others?
Fort Worth hosted the USATF half champs a couple of years ago in 2023. I think it was like the Cowtown half or something. They maybe had a full at the same time too, but it was only the half champs. So I raced in Fort Worth, and then Austin in college, I raced at UT. They used to host the regional. I'm not sure if they still do, but the West regionals for track for NCAAs, they used to host. So raced there a couple times on University of Texas track. So I've raced, I think that's like all the major cities. If you count Fort Worth and Dallas, it's the same city, right? So I get racing all the cities of Texas now. Houston, Houston half. I think it's the best half in the country. There might be some faster.
And my last question was, which one is your favorite?
I would say those are probably downhill, at least net downhill. Houston, it's just flat. It's fast. It's a good race.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, my first guest was he has ran almost all of his marathons in Houston, and he's done
I've never done the
full several times.
I've heard that's
and he was like, yeah, he's like, I got a theme here, fast and flat. I'm cheating all the way. But he said Houston's a great course.
Yeah, no worries. No, thanks for having me.
And that was my conversation with Colin Mickow. And thank you so much for listening. And Colin, if you're hearing this, thank you so much for coming on. I know we had some audio issues there later on, and it seems like we were able to get everything worked out. So that's really cool. And yeah, again, thank you so much, Colin, for being so generous with your time. I'll definitely be following him from here on out. And congratulations again on the San Antonio Marathon.